I think they'd be disappointed with their two performances against Canada. Certainly got that feeling, especially after the last game, not to be able to make a big improvement in the batting stakes after getting bowled out for 80 in the first game. I thought they might bounce back better than that, and I think they were disappointed that they didn't. Plenty of learnings, I think, for that group. You know, not a lot of experience on a turf wicket, and they certainly struggled to adjust a little bit to that, and just consistently make good decisions and be good with their feet, and hit the ball straighter. So they're two takeaways for the batting group. I think the bowling group responded really well. I think the first couple of days we maybe bowled a little bit short, but I was really impressed with the way the bowlers responded today against Bermuda and bowled a good full length. The two quicks bowled really well up front, and then the spinners bowled a better length, nice and full on a wicket that was bouncing a bit more, which was great, and were able to take some wickets as a result. So it was nice for them to see a bit of reward for, you know, making that tweak in their game. So that was pleasing. It's always going to be difficult for these guys who play on turf or who play on synthetic or mats to make that adjustment. So if you know, we can give them an opportunity to play on turf as a group before that tournament, they're going to be much better prepared. So I'm hoping that we are able to do that with this group at some stage. I guess it depends a little bit on timing and schooling and all those sorts of things, but this group would benefit greatly from a week in Trinidad or somewhere in the Caribbean playing on turf wicket against on solid opposition. I think it'll prepare them a lot better for hitting the ground running when they get to a tournament like this. Obviously, a couple of guys who had more experience on turf wickets did play well this week, but I think there were some other guys who hadn't played as much who still made some adjustments and showed, you know, that they've got potential to make runs, you know, just with a couple of little tweaks. So I don't think it's ever going to get to a stage where you just go, well, these 6 batters play on turf week in, week out, so you've got to pick them. I think that might come into consideration for the selectors if they've got more experience on turf wickets and they're making runs, but you know, you still want to pick the most talented players, because I think generally the most talented players can adjust more quickly. There's a couple. Raymond was really good. He's a youngish player for this age group, I think. A bit younger than a couple of the other guys, and I thought the way that he just adapted his game to step up and play good cricket consistently without sort of starring, but just bowled really well, bowled good lengths generally, and showed in the last 2 games when he opened the batting that he's got a game that can play at that level. You know, good game sense, can pick up singles, and so whilst he didn't get a big score, he was one of the guys that I wasn't, didn't know as much about coming into this week, but he impressed me with his game sense and the way that he went about his cricket. Obviously, a couple of guys, were quite impressive with the bat. Richie and Arjun were more consistent in terms of the way they scored runs. So they were a standout, and to be able to score 100 for Richie and a good 80 and a 50 or 60 from Arjun shows that they've got an appetite for runs, which is always what you like to see in your top 4 batters, top 6 batters. So they were good, and then I think our spin department is good. There's plenty of potential there, and as I said earlier, the way they could adjust to bowling a better length, whilst I don't think they were quite at the level of the Canadian spinners, to see that improvement. Hopefully in 12 months' time they could be at that level. From here, it's still a little bit to be determined, but the squad of 30 will all get a strength and conditioning program, which I think is one area that really needs some improvement. I think some of the skill errors that we see this week, bowling short, missing out on singles and not being as sharp in the field, can be rectified by being a bit stronger, particularly through the core, and a couple of the young spinners would really benefit from that. So they'll all get a fitness program to do over the next period. They'll go back to their clubs, and they're all aware of some of the improvement areas that they need to work on. And then next year, in terms of the selection of the side, it's still to be determined what that might look like, but we'd like to see a good core of players, what that number is, play against each other and have a good competitive trial. And ideally, we can do that a bit earlier in the year so that it gives the time to the selected squad to know that they're selected and potentially to do a preparation tour or whatever might happen there. So I guess in a broad sense, have a good sound selection process earlier in the year and then allow that squad some time to prepare, and what that might look like is sort of to be determined. The takeaway for me is, as we chatted about with the group, is that the talent is there. I think Sushil and Amir, both believe that, and I think the players even believe that themselves, that talent-wise, they're as good as Canada, that there is the ability there. Just execution and experience, they just lack that in comparison to the Canadian team this week. So there's plenty to work on to get them to that level, but I think my takeaway is that it's exciting that that talent is there. Certainly needs refining and more experience in conditions like this against better players. But it's a really good group, that group, and I'm sure the other guys in the squad and some of the guys who are just missed out on the squad can come into contention next year and form what will be hopefully a much improved squad that can play in the qualifier.